Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wombs with a View Maternal Musings with Jenny and Sylvia. I am Sylvia,
I'm Jenny.
and through our show, through our stories and anecdotes, we want to inspire and educate, provide our listeners with options when it comes to birthing and raising your babies. Now, can you guess what we're talking about today? I will give you a few seconds, but thank you for joining us. Please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you are on YouTube. Here, lovely faces, lovely faces.
Hi, Sylvia. So yes, probably you guessed. Either we're talking about implants, or
Not, yes, it could be.
yeah, it could be. Our main goal today, however, is to talk about breastfeeding, specifically focusing on the first few days, knowing how a baby is going to need to learn how to latch, and how is this really this dance between mom and baby, and also dad in the new family dynamic, and how sometimes there can be some frustrations when things aren't exactly going according to plan. So while we can't guarantee breastfeeding success, immediately after watching our show here today, we're really hoping that we can help to set you up on a good start.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you're going to leave today's show with a lot of great tidbits. We want to talk about what does that first latch look like? People have such high expectations when I go to births, and they want to have this perfect latch right away. We'll talk about scheduling. We're going to talk about understanding how do you know if baby's getting enough? That's a question we often get,
Mm-hmm.
especially Jenny as a postpartum doula. How much is my baby? How do I know if I'm feeding enough? Especially when we don't have the milliliters. I have no idea. I breastfed for 4.5 years and had no idea how much, my babies were getting. We're going to be talking about caring for your breasts, when things are perhaps not going as smoothly, and tips perhaps on, setting you up in your house. Those are the kind of things we're going to talk about today. If you're watching, please like whatever, press like. There you go.
Thumbs
And
up or thumbs down, whatever you're feeling.
whatever. I don't know if you can even get a thumbs up. We can see your comments. Please just say yes if you're watching. Share some stories with us. This is a live show, and we want to be interacting with you. The community aspect of this for us is super important. And thank you all for your lovely comments and your follows, because it allows us to keep going, and we have a lot of fun with this. We have a lot of fun. Uh, Yes, breastfeeding. I'm going to go back in my memory 12 and a half years ago.
Whoa.
It's a long
Sorry.
time. It's a long time. Yeah, my son was born 12 and a half years ago. And I had no idea. I had read one book. It was called, I can't even remember now, Best Feeding. That's what it was called. And after birth, you put your baby to the breast as best as you can, and you hope for the best, or hope for the breast. Haha. And I left him there, literally on the first feed, for 45 minutes. And no one told me to take him off. No one told me if I was doing a good job. And he just kind of fell asleep. And I literally had a cracked and bleeding nipple
Mm,
after that first
mm.
feed, which was really sore. and I can see how people will want to stop, once you start getting into some issues. It took me about 3 weeks, Jenny, to get rid of that. And I know you're going to share your story as well, which is a very different story. But I
It-
often encounter women with, problems from the get go in the first couple of
yeah,
weeks.
that first latch can be killer. That's where we do meet. As I had a similar experience, but
Mm,
I was in the hospital. I didn't just put baby to breast and hope for the best. I, kind of panicked because I thought in my mind that she needed to eat immediately
right?
after being born, which is not the case. So we can share, but yeah, before I tell my crack nipple story, which I'm sure everybody wants to hear, is if I had known, and I did know the second time around, of this magical thing called the breast crawl. And please, if you guys have
Mm.
seen this video, let us know how you feel about it. And if you haven't seen it, Google breast crawl and have your box of Kleenex, especially if you're pregnant. It's a tearjerker.
So beautiful, so
So
beautiful.
basically, baby is born and placed on the belly, and like every other mammal who does not need a lactation consultant or any hands and nurses manipulating different body parts, the baby will crawl up and latch on his or her own. And that's really what we kind of hope for in that first latch at the hospital as doulas. Now that we've gone through our experience, Sylvia with yours and me with mine, of like, you know, different ways of trying to control it, is very often baby is going to be able to just root around and suck and lick and try to figure out what's going on as if he or she was a cat or a, you know, any other mammal.
A little baby. Well, they're very hands-on in the hospital. They're very hands-on, and they will grab your breast, grab the baby's, you know, head and stick it on and hope for the, you know, then they're rooting. And I'm like, just leave the baby there. You know, there doesn't have to be this latch on. We want the baby that will, you know, we're going to come
But then
back
there
to
must
that,
be
but
a happy medium then, because if you're not wanting them to, you know, it sounds like just leave the baby there, but when you just left the baby there, you had issues. So where's the line between how much we're trying to help baby and also letting baby be? I had one of those. I was at St. Mary's, which, as we all know, for better or for worse, is called a baby-friendly hospital, which in my experience doesn't always mean it's mama-friendly. When it comes to the postpartum, the nurses, it's mandatory that you leave breastfeeding. So whatever that happens to be, there was a lot of manhandling. I was very stressed out. And similar to you, Sylvia, the very first time for me, it was 9 years ago that my daughter latched. She drew blood immediately. Immediately. And we ended up, her nickname, my ob-gyn thought it was hilarious and nicknamed her Baby Barracuda. Which she was. She just, but the non-funny thing was that she was actually tongue-tied. And that was the reason for the trauma to my nipple, to both of my nipples. Anybody who's pregnant right now does not want to hear that my nipples looked and felt like somebody had taken a cheese grater to them. But that's what it looked and felt like.
And we share, a lot of people share these stories, and that's why people are afraid of the breastfeeding before they even have their baby. Now, we're just sharing our own personal stories. You know, and both of our stories end really well. You know, after it did take me 3 weeks to heal that one nipple, but I was very adamant to breastfeed, and just kept going and kept, you know, asking advice, getting some creams, getting some help. And I noticed it was getting better. So it did take me, you know, only 3 weeks. And then after that, it went well. And for my other two babies, it went, you know, very, very well, those experiences.
And do you think that it was like your boys, like what was the difference? Did you do something different with the girls that you feel changed? Or do you think that maybe do you ever think about why it was so different the second and third time?
Well, I just knew better. I had done it already for a year and a half. So I just kind of knew not to leave the girl, you know, not to leave my daughters on. And especially that first latch for 45 minutes to an hour, just nonstop sucking. I think that.
Well, you know, somebody was saying the other day, who the heck was it? I can't remember. Maybe it was in my hypnobirthing training, saying, or maybe it was you, Sylvia, if you rub, so we say, if you rub any random part of your skin for 45 minutes, and then you take a little break, and then you rub your skin for 45 minutes, and you take a little break, and then you know, eventually you're going to have a sore. It really was, I wish I could find the source. I think it was Mercedes from my training. And so to say it's not normal that you had cracked nipples and then I had cracked nipples, that's not supposed to happen. And to be honest, it doesn't happen most of the time. We do get clients. And I think because of my experience with tongue tie, and I'm very happy to elaborate on it, when I can't diagnose and I don't diagnose, but for me, if I see that same kind of like initial trauma with cracked and bleeding nipples, or like every time mom latches, in the back of my mind, it's okay, maybe you want to get checked for tongue tie. And no, it's not going to be your doctor necessarily. And no, it's not going to be necessarily the CLSC nurses. The pro to diagnose a tongue tie or really deal with heavy breastfeeding issues is an IBCLC, which is an international board certified lactation consultant. And sometimes in the hospital, you know, we can't all be experts in every field. And if somebody is a nurse in labor and delivery, they're not necessarily, even though they've been around many babies, they cannot. The tongue tying too can be anterior or posterior. You cannot always even see it with a naked eye. So it's really, it's really having IBCLC, which again, in her scope is not technically to diagnose, but she's going to give you a good idea. And then the dentist will be able to tell you. And then that, you know, not even to say that every baby that has, so what is tongue tie? I'll maybe recule a bit, although a lot of people know it's a short frenulum, bottom of the tongue. So that baby, and often more and more now, I don't know if you've seen in your experience,
Upper,
Sylvia, also
posterior.
upper.
Mm-hmm.
So between the two teeth. So I always tell people, I'm like, my teeth, I don't know if you know this, Sylvia, my teeth are veneers.
Oh, are
Those are
they? No, I
fake
did
teeth.
not know. I
Because
did
Jenny
not know
B's
that.
real teeth
Have a
have a
huge gap.
space this big. So again, not to like
Mm.
prophesize or anything, but if I see a pregnant couple and mom or dad,
Mm.
because this is hereditary, has a big space between
Mm-hmm.
their teeth, it's caused by that frenule. And this rarely happens if that's not already happening.
Ah,
It's very
yeah.
rare that you have a lip tie and not a tongue tie. So when that's happening, baby cannot properly flange out. So you get trauma to the nipple, and baby also can't properly call the milk. And because breastfeeding is supply and demand, if he or she is not flanging out well enough and the jaw is not working properly, then we start to see issues with supply. And you're like, I don't have enough milk. It's not that your body doesn't have enough milk or cannot produce enough milk. It's that they say it's not your fault. It's the baby's fault. Blame the baby.
Blame
No,
the no, don't blame
but
the
it
baby.
really is.
Yeah.
It's we take it so personally. We can't, because you're, of course, you were responsible for the caring of the baby for 9 months, and you were the only one able to do that. Now really you're the only one able
To
to nourish
feed,
the baby,
right? And
so
there you
you're
can't.
basically a piece of shit
If you
woman, mother,
can't.
if you can't nourish your
Well, the
baby.
feelings of guiltiness, right, come up, and the feelings of guilt come up very often
Yeah.
when there are issues. Not to say, look, we've jumped into this into like how difficult breastfeeding can be, but just know that it's not difficult for everybody. And today we're just going to show you like what exactly what should you be expecting, right? Let's go back to that first latch.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
People want the clients I worked with, oh, baby has to feed within that 30 and 60 minutes and has to have a perfect latch and start feeding. And like they're not that hungry, the babies, right away. Their bellies are filled with amniotic fluid. I like to have that first latch is not even a latch. It's like Jenny said, the breast crawl, putting the baby in between mom's breast, hanging out there. Baby will slowly wake up. The smells, they start to smell. They start rooting, with their little tongue, and they start to look for the breast if we just let them without manhandling them, baby handling them. And really, for me, it's a developmental, a process for them. They start to,
Mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm.
to to search for it and look for it, just like you were saying, little baby cats and dogs. We don't have to teach them, do we? They
It
just
is.
go
It's
for it.
coming back, but it's this also this disconnect that we often talk when we teach people about birth. Is we are mammals, and like we don't always want to acknowledge the fact that we are mammals, but we are
Mm,
mammals. So when we're birthing, one of my students in yoga class the other day, she's like, "Oh, I don't know why, but I just have this image of Mama Bear," and she was
mm,
just like, "I just feel like when I'm birthing," she's like at 39.5 weeks or something. She's like, "I just feel like a big." So in her mind, when she's imagining and visualizing her birth, she's going to be Big
yeah.
Mama Bear, and then so Big Mama Bear needs to really just lay back. If you've seen a polar bear nursing, I think that was when things really clicked for me. I actually at some point was studying to be an IBCLC because I was so taken, and I knew after my own 2 experiences how important this work was.
Mm,
So I had started taking my courses and these women have a phenomenal amount of training. It's not
mm,
just like, oh, they've taken, like Sylvia and I are both have worked, has volunteered as Nourrissource support people. So maybe write down if you're pregnant now and we're looking for different resources. Nourrissource is a fantastic
yeah, here in
resource
Quebec, yeah.
where support mothers like Sylvia and myself have done quite a amount of training in order to support other women on the phone or at an alt d'allaitement, a breastfeeding drop-in, when stuff starts to be in person again. Hopefully soon. So that's a wonderful resource, and I really recommend that everybody who's pregnant get hooked up with their breastfeeding mom. But just to say that the IBCLC, it is above and beyond. It is vast amounts of training. A lot of them are
Mm-hmm.
nurses first. Like I had a journalism background, so then I'm going back to CEGEP to take science classes, and anyway, I ended up not going that route. Point being, my switch really flipped. I was at one of the meetings for the lactation consultants, and we just were watching this slideshow about what we call biological nursing or laid back nursing. And it was just slide after slide after slide of mammal.
Animals,
This
yeah,
is how
animals.
these mammals, so there's no cross cradle hold,
No
we're not going to,
pillows.
you don't need your $300
Breastfeeding
nursing pillow. You don't need your
organic
palm.
pillow.
Again, it doesn't always seem like it's that natural, and it's sometimes set us up in a big disappointment if we're like, oh well, all of the animal kingdom plus all of my friends can do it, I can't do it, what's wrong with me? That's not the point. The point of it is It is quite natural, and or if we're well set up, I guess that's what I'm getting at. If we're well set up and we know who to call if there happens to be an issue, that's the best possible thing to just keep in the back of mind. Okay, things will probably go well, but if they don't, who can help me now, not 3 weeks from now? Because when breastfeeding isn't going well, it is hell on earth.
Yeah,
Like
you want to get that support
it's the
right
most
away.
important
Yeah.
thing, and you don't wait. If you have a bleeding nipple, it's not, it's not necessarily going to get better on its own. So Sylvia was mentioning that she used different creams. I imagine a lanolin cream, and I imagine an apno cream. Jot that down. Apno it's a big boy drug with antibiotics in it, but it is incredible at healing cracks. So it's
Yeah,
Dr.
APNO.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Dr. Jack Newman, who's a breastfeeding doctor in Toronto, who has this wonderful prescription. When you put it on the nipple, it is safe for baby to then drink. And then the magic thing that we always, as doulas, recommend people is actually our own milk. So if your nipples are cracked, you can express some of your own milk, and then you just hang out and obviously don't nurse as much on that one side, although you want to keep the milk production flowing. So sometimes people will pump on the cracked side. I don't know if that was how you ended up healing
Yeah, I ended
yours.
up taking some time off, not doing every feed, not alternating, on the breasts, but yeah, taking some time off. And there are, ways of healing, but we need to find the resources. So we have to, like you mentioned. So we've talked about that first latch, letting baby find the breast, lick and smell and getting used to it, and then proceeding to, breastfeeding, and baby does need to latch eventually and start drinking colostrum. How often do babies feed, Jenny, in those first days? If people are thinking it's all the time, is it all the time?
It's
Is it
totally all the
not all the
time. I'm sorry, it's totally all the time. And I think like everything, I always come back in, whether it's the prenatal education or the yoga, the coming back to surrender and knowing that it's not permanent, knowing that it's so intense with the feeding in the beginning, and then it just slows and slows and slows. And if you go on to nurse, into 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, people do it. We'll do a show about it. I swear to God, people do it. It's less and less and less. So to if you're sitting there like, oh my God, I've literally been nursing every hour for the last 24 hours, at least it feels like this. The worst thing you can do is imagine the rest of your life like that, because it's just not the way that it is. So to
No, it's
expect
really a
it,
phase. It's a phase.
you expect
Yeah.
that it is full on in the beginning while you're getting it established. And the reason baby is nursing so much in the first couple of days, he only has colostrum. He's constantly calling out this
Very
colostrum.
thick and dense, and it takes so long for baby to get it out, right? And then the milk comes in only, maybe after a vaginal birth, anywhere from day 2 or 3 after birth. And then if you have a cesarean, sometimes we can expect a little later, maybe up to 5 days, sometimes 7 days, but I've rarely seen that. So they're only drinking colostrum, which takes a long time. So they are on the breast a lot.
And they're setting up this call and response, or this supply call and response. That's a nice image, actually. Supply and demand chain of like they're allowing your body to understand how much milk that particular child needs. So they're nursing and nursing, and then I love the expression in French, monter de lait, because it's so clear.
De lait.
You
Yeah.
think your breasts are big, and then moment donné, and you sometimes
explodes.
I remember the first time I'm like I'm covered in liquid, and oh my God, it's actually milk.
And take pictures. Take pictures of those breasts. I wish I had pictures.
Yeah, the time in your life when you have porn star breasts and you don't want to be touched.
Yeah. It's true. I know it's only eyes only. One question I often get is, how do we know babies are getting enough milk? And people are really, really, really worried about the amount that they're feeding, because we have no idea.
Well, it's because we're used to measuring everything in life, and we have I think sometimes too it becomes very misleading if people are, for one reason or another, also using the pump, and then you can look in the pump and you see a certain amount, and you're like, oh my God, well, that's not enough for baby, like he's not getting enough. But the pump is often not nearly as effective as the baby is.
I enjoyed pumping, and I know we have different, I know you didn't really like pumping, or maybe didn't pump. Is that correct?
I
If
actually, with
I'm,
my
did you?
first kid,
You
but
pumped?
she went into daycare at 9 months old,
Okay, so you were
and I pumped
pumping.
every
Yeah.
time that I came home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I actually had the
The
double Medela
double,
pump with the
the
bra
double
around, and I would.
industrial.
Yeah, I did it, and I always say to students and clients, you absolutely don't need to do that unless you're going back to work before a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Yeah, I was an occasional pumper, like not occasional, every day, perhaps while I was watching The View or something, 10 minutes, and I would just take what I got out. But really, don't think of your pump. A pump is not a barometer of how much milk you make.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then that's a really important fact because on my right side, I would be able to pump 1 ounce only. The 1 ounce, where's my can? 1 ounce was really, but I knew babies were gaining weight, and they were getting enough milk because they were gaining weight and they were peeing the amount of diapers, right? So one thing we look at is how do we know babies are getting enough? It's by the weight gain.
But yeah,
Do they
that's
look satiated at the breast? Are they falling asleep and their hands are all limp? They're not fighting the breast. They're not asking for more. A baby who asks for more is crying and screaming and is
mhm,
frustrated.
mhm.
But a baby who falls asleep after a good 10-15 minute feed has had enough, right? They will tell you. They may wake up an hour or two later. This is normal for,
Mhm.
what we were talking about before. No schedules at the beginning. So what we're looking for, weight gain and diapers.
Diapers, and you don't
Mm,
want the pee to be too pee smelling. Like you want it to, just like us, if adults don't drink
yeah.
enough water throughout the day, it's going to be really dark yellow pee. We really want like clear, and then the poops as well. And nature sets us
Mm,
up well, at least in the first little while, to be like, okay, one pee, day two pees. It doesn't continue. They're not 2 weeks old with 14 diapers, but in the first
no.
little while, to keep
Up to six
an eye.
days. Yeah.
And then the poops are super important too. You
Mm,
also eventually breastfed babies can poop a little less, but in the beginning, I think we want it to
mm.
continue to move through.
Yeah, so setting you up for that breastfeeding journey after bringing baby home is really following your baby's cues, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like to say, get to bed with your partner and your baby and hang out there for days and just
Yeah.
feed, have food brought to you. Your partner can bring you some food, but you really just stay there and really have no other things on your to-do
And the
list,
skin
right?
to
It's,
skin is a big part of that too. You
oh,
can't do too
yeah.
much skin to skin. You just
No.
kind of, and it coming up to summer months, anybody who's having babies soon, don't put the air con on too high. And like, you don't have to, sweat to death in 40-degree weather, but you literally just lay there skin to skin or sit there skin to skin. And, it's okay to watch TV and whatever, but just really treat it as, okay, this is the priority right now.
Mm.
And once this is rolling, we can get back to things looking a little bit more normal.
Alice has a question here. When can I start a breastfeeding schedule? Yeah. So at the beginning, I find there are no schedules. We were really following baby's lead. But then I found myself all of a sudden organically have a
Mm-hmm,
schedule for my
mm-hmm.
babies. And I'm trying to think of when that comes around. Do you have any ideas, a timeline? I think it's different for
Well,
every
Alice, I
baby,
don't know
but
if you're able to. So I happen to know that her little
mm-hmm.
guy is 7 weeks old. I'm wondering if you're starting to see a little pattern emerge at 7 weeks. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think maybe a little something.
Yeah,
And
I
again,
think
it's not
around
to
that time
force
too.
the schedule, but you start to
It
you
organically
start to
happens.
understand. Yeah, just like you understand those cues. Like we're talking about feeding on demand. Well, what does that mean? A lot of times, parents, for various reasons, probably like movies we've seen or talking to parents, other parents or our own parents, we're waiting for baby to be freaking out crying before we
Mm.
feed.
Yeah,
And as we
too
teach
long.
in our classes, you've gone way past. If baby's turned red and screaming for milk, probably he's not even going to take the breast. You're going to have to
No,
find
it's too
another way to calm him
frustrated.
down. It's gone.
Mm.
So you're looking for the subtle cues. Okay, they're starting to eat. And then you get to know, just like you're getting to know your breastfeeding schedule at some point, you get to know, like, there's
Mm.
one postpartum family that I have right now that she knows, she's like, oh, he's not doing the puck puck. If he's doing the puck puck, he's hungry. If he's just sucking his thumb, he's just
Then
finding his
he's
thumb. But
fine. Then
he
he's
really
fine.
does. She knows his puck puck.
Mm-hmm. And the schedules, I find, the schedules, what that starts to look like. Baby wakes up in the morning, say around 6. We know they're hungry. We feed them. They probably have an hour window, an hour to an hour and a half where they're awake and we can play with them. Perhaps not as a newborn. We are talking in the first few days. But for Alice, when baby is a little bit older, they have this awake time. And around 1 hour, we're going to see sleeping cues. That's a whole different topic. Then we put them to bed. Then they wake up again, then they feed again, and then they're an hour awake. And then that's, so that happens where then all of a sudden baby's napping probably 4 times a day. And then that eventually that goes to 3 times, to 2 times, to one nap a day. And we're talking over a full year. So I think, Alice, you are in that period where you're going to see some schedules there, some schedules starting to happen. But in those first few days, for those of you just starting or pregnant, don't expect schedules right away. It doesn't. We're just following baby's cue.
And it can be maddening too. Like I often with families like, oh, but it's nighttime and he's awake all night and then he sleeps during the day. It's just this period where everybody is they're nocturnal little people until you again, I feel like the sooner you're like, okay, give it to me and surrender, the sooner things will get better. But the more, and this is like for life, this is like, now I have a 9-year-old, like whatever the thing is, the more you fight and try to like make it be the thing, it will just always toilet training, like feeding broccoli, everything you try to force.
Well, there's so much anxiety now around all of this. I see it in the moms groups, oh, I'm so frustrated. My baby can't do this. I'm like, well, just let baby do what baby needs to do, Alice had another question we're going to talk about. We talked a little bit about taking care of our breasts for sure. And lanolin cream. She says, what do you think about lanolin cream? Lanolin is made out of sheep. It's partly sheep. So I know vegetarians. You're a vegetarian,
and
Jenny. That would be something.
And so is Alice
use.
Actually too. Okay. Yeah, and I had that question from someone else the other day saying like everything I read is without lanolin, no lanolin, no lanolin. What's wrong with lanolin? And it's the same as like with our almond milk. Like everybody kind of was upset about the carrageenan, so then it was like all the almond milk producers were making sure to label. So I think in a lot of times if they're marketing toward the vegetarian or the vegan or the more natural, which the lanolin's fine, and for a lot of women, those thicker based creams prevent like a barrier, which can feel really nice. But if it's to heal cracks, I feel like the regular breast milk is perfect.
Yeah, regular breast milk, and like you said, the Jack Newman nipple ointment, it does have a little bit of medication in, but if you're needing some medicated cream, taking care of breasts for sure. We want to keep them moist. I know that word there.
You're speaking moistly.
I'm speaking moistly.
Speaking moistly about breasts.
And not letting them dry. The breast pads that you might use as well, I would suggest using something with wool, and hemp or bamboo, or a mixture of those three. Nothing the cotton, and not the disposable breast pads, because you take those off, they dry on your nipple, you take them off, it takes part of your breast with you. So taking care of our breast, if you can walk around the house topless, that's even, that's great. But using colostrum for sure. Any tips before we end, Jenny, on setting your home up for breastfeeding?
Yeah, for sure. We often in our prenatal classes recommend having nursing stations. This little like imagine rack, or at least like a little side table. I always say to pick the most comfortable space in your house. Probably not just one room. Like you don't necessarily want to get yourself set up in baby's room or your own room where I just like, if there's no natural light, if you can be really, I feel like the ideal place is your living room. You have some kind of screen. It's, I got cable. Netflix wasn't a thing when my daughter was born, but I got cable for the first time in a long time. Because like, okay, I'm going to be here and it's perfect. And I'm going to, and you can read. It's a little bit tricky to read a book with two hands, but sometimes people read their Kindle or whatever. You have your little iPad, and then you have one or two water bottles. You have energy bars. You have food and little things to be able to snack on. So and then you also have like a little diaper changing station. And I totally understand that when you're pregnant, you won't be able to fathom what I'm about to say. But like sometimes baby needs to eat so quickly that you're not going to like get up from your place, go over there, or even upstairs to baby's change table that you've taken all this time to set up the nursery, change the diaper, come back. By this point, baby's red and freaking out. Sometimes it is so fast that and I'm not a huge fan of Purell, but I did always have Purell with me because sometimes that thing is so fast that you have to change a poopy diaper and then baby needs to eat right away, and you're not going to go take the time, leave baby on your couch and go wash your hands. It's like, okay,
It's
Purell this
hard to
time.
fathom. It's hard to fathom. And what happens when your baby cries? Again, that mama bear, right? A
Mhm,
mama bear
mhm,
for baby is crying, attacks, right? Whoever
mhm,
she's going after, the
mhm,
attacker.
mhm, mhm.
Or we get these, and you'll get these anxiety, these hormones rushing. It's that
Yeah.
protecting, and we have to, I would tell my husband, stop the car. We have to get out. The baby's crying. And he's like,
Mm.
come on, like, it's no big deal. I'm like, no, I'm
Mhm.
feeling
It's
this.
that the dads love the babies so much, but you don't
They
you
don't have,
don't
it's not the
feel
same
the
reaction.
connection between a breastfeeding mom
It's
and baby
biological.
is it's hormonal, it's everything. That's why when we
Mm,
talk about bed sharing, we say to do it if you're breastfeeding mom. You
yeah.
don't put baby beside dad. He loves baby just as much as you do, but it's
It's
just
not
not
the
the
same
same.
thing. And going back to the room, and yeah, people often ask them questions. What do you have to? What's left over to buy and whatnot? Oh, we want to get the rocking chair in the room, and it's
Mhm,
the
mhm.
room, the room, the room. Honestly, you don't need a baby room in those first months. Baby's probably going to be sleeping in your room. So setting yourself up in those public spaces so that you feel part of the family, because you're not going to go in the baby's room to feed all the time, and
It's depressing.
particularly
It's
at night.
depressing if you're shut in. It's
Yeah.
like,
And
yeah.
at night, don't get out of bed and go into the room, into the baby's room. You got every hour, every 2 hours, you're going to
Mhm.
not have any sleep whatsoever. Yes. Oh
And
gosh, we
the
could talk
government
about
does
this.
even the government does even recommend for the first 6 months having baby in your room anyway, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really really smart.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so
ours
I guess
too.
that maybe that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't super clear with the I'm like talking about changing diapers, and you have a
Mm.
little waterproof thing. You don't have to have your whole big
Mm.
uh, table
Change table.
change table. You just have a little piquet, a little pad that you can put
Yeah.
down. You have your wipes, you have your diapers, you have everything that you can possibly need. Imagining that you're not going to get up for the next 2 or 3 hours, and it's not because you're
Mm.
lazy. It's just because that is your life at that moment, and
Exhausted.
you'll get a rest. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm. Jenny, I think we could have another show on breastfeeding for sure. This
we
was
will. We could have another
some
15 shows.
some
It's so
quick
important.
tips
Yeah.
and tools. Yes, definitely. If you are watching this in the replay, let us know your stories. Let us know your questions. We're always in the group, and we will answer them. Great show. Thank you so much,
Can
Jenny.
I leave a takeaway? Can
Of
I leave
course. What's
one?
the
I think we have a
takeaway?
couple of
Yes,
them.
we have a couple.
You can listen to the horror stories, you can listen to the positive stories, you can prepare as much as you can. I said it at the very beginning. I think the smartest thing to do is to have phone numbers and resources in your back pocket, and to not let things drag on, and to know who to contact. And that could actually be Sylvia or myself. We say that to
Yeah,
students and clients all the time.
I
We
hear.
might not be able to go to your house and show you or tell you exactly what you need to hear, but we have all the resources, or we will find all the resources and help to point you in the right direction.
Mm.
And I think also too, to be gentle on ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that was one thing I was really thinking about. And I always reflect. I always blame my young age as a mom on why I was the way that I was. I don't know if it was being young or being immature or a mixture of the both. But I was so black or white, and I was like so much a martyr, and I was 100% going to breastfeed. So I didn't entertain alternate modes of getting food into my baby. That's a whole other show, but the whole point is that you have a breastfeeding goal. You can get there. You might not get there as quickly as you're used to getting places, because now it's you and baby needs to participate, and we need to figure out what's going on. But if you have that goal, you will get there. And if the goal is
Mm-hmm.
to breastfeed exclusively, even though that might not be happening day 4, day 5, now we're starting to pump milk and use other ways to get our pumped milk into baby. Know that if you keep working and you're well supported, you will get there. That's kind of the thing. You will, and you can get there. It might not be as easy as you're used to things
Mm-hmm.
being. It
And
can
it
be
might
very
not
hard.
look, you're right, it might not look exactly the way we idealize a lot of things. Just like we
Mm-hmm.
idealize birth, we idealize this
Mm-hmm.
breastfeeding relationship we have with our babies. And sometimes it will be that way, and sometimes it won't. But
Mm-hmm.
the resources, yes. And I put
Yeah.
our websites here. Reach out to us. As many of you know, we both work for Rock the Cradle, a doula agency here in Montreal. Jenny is our postpartum doula. She goes into the houses. She can help with breastfeeding and
Mm-hmm.
setting your place up and giving you some tips and tools. We have other people, our colleagues on our team as well, who work in birth and postpartum, and we have lots of contacts. Thank you so much for listening. And there is a little feedback. I'm sorry if that bothered anybody, but like our page, share it with your friends who are pregnant and new moms. Let's get this going. Community is so important. And we just want you to know that we're here for you. We are going live every Wednesday. It's Canada Day today. I don't even know if we went. Happy
I don't know
Canada
who
Day.
is watching, from where they're watching specifically, but if you're in Quebec, I'm actually just watching my neighbors go up and down
Oh, it's
moving.
moving day.
It's moving
Happy
day because
moving
the
day.
celebration was Saint Jean, and now and honestly,
It's
as
true.
somebody who grew up in Ontario, who grew up in Ottawa, where this is the day that you did stuff, this is the day that you stayed out past 10 p.m. in Ottawa. It's been 10 years of just mourning the loss of Canada Day. I don't
Moving
care very
day.
much today.
Thank you for listening, Maria. It's so nice to see you on here. And wow, 10 days to go. How exciting. And
Wow.
thank you, Alice, new mom and client of ours. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. And
Thank you.
we've got some great shows coming up for you. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah. Bye.